Hey, and welcome back to episode 86 of the Pack You Run podcast. Just doing a little quick pre-intro thing to make sure that if any of this conversation seems a little bit lost on you, make sure that you listen through our previous episode with our friend Brad Tuller, going through a little bit of a hybrid, like the best / the most influential albums from 2000 to 2025. We went really long on these recordings, so I'm sure that they're going to be behemoths. I think the last one was pushing the 2-hour mark, and we're definitely gonna clock that here. But yeah, we will be back as I record this. It's Monday, January 19th, and I just want to give a shout out to the New England Patriots going on to the AFC Championship game. I'm sure Dan and I will hop back on mics soon enough to give you guys updates on that. But in the meantime, I think I've got the synchronicity between the three of us pretty good. Wasn't super proud of the leveling with the last episode, so I tried to fix a little bit of that. 3 different people on 3 different recording setups trying to overcompensate for a FaceTime call and everything else. The technical specs are what they are. And then if anybody's a super audio nerd like me, shout out to Brad. Let me know how I sound on this, because I also upgraded my microphone and I'm trying to make this my permanent podcasting rig. So let me know.
I'm doing it first. I am recording right now. I'm the first person to record in the history of humanity.
Dan is the first person to record.
We are going. Clapping?
All right, 3, 2, 1. And we're back after 8 hours at the Chalk Factory and a nice little sleep.
Betty by time.
It was Betty by time by the time we were done yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Where did we leave off?
So we left off at number 3. Oh, no, we have to start number 3.
Yes. So we just finished up.
We did all our 4s.
Yeah. We just finished Fall Out Boy.
Ah, okay.
So that means it's Dan's turn to kick it off with his number 3.
Sure. So my number 3 is Worry by Jeff Rosenstock. Jeff Rosenstock is not I would say he's not a household name amongst mainstream, but I think this is millennial core to its core.
Okay.
I think this is it's a landmark punk album. I might even say it's probably the best punk record from that decade, from like the 2010s.
Someone's in the hot take chamber.
Well, what's yours? Let's hear yours.
Oh, I don't know. We might
wait. His favorite punk record or his favorite number or his number 3? You're talking about his favorite punk record.
Well, I'm saying number 3 is on my list of most influential records of the last 25 years.
Yeah.
I think this has shaped punk currently to what it is, in messaging as well as instrumentation. Maybe not instrumentation. I think like punk is kind of like a standard genre. I guess you could say it's a little bit derivative in some ways. But as far as lyricism goes and just messaging, I think it's up there as what punk should be in the ethos of punk. And Jeff is just a really great songwriter. That's all I really have to say, at least for this moment.
Yeah. AJ, are you familiar with this album?
I am. Yeah. This was
Okay.
I was laughing a little bit to myself when I saw it on Dan's list, because it is so Dan Mayotte core.
Oh, yes, it is.
This is like Jeff Rosenstock, kind of like the Have Heart conversation we were having earlier. Like, it kind of passed me by. But I remember when this album came out, and I remember like the shockwave effect that it had. And while there's not a lot of stuff that I'm listening to currently that I feel like touches on the Jeff Rosenstock kind of sound. That's more due to taste. What I remember most about this particular album was just the way that people that were already familiar, people that liked Jeff Rosenstock even tangentially, like this was a huge buzz album, and there were, I don't mean this in like a derogatory way, this was like a t-shirt album. Like everybody that went to go see a Jeff Rosenstock show, everybody that got this album, like sense. I just remember seeing everybody wearing Jeff Rosenstock t-shirts.
Yeah, I mean, kind of is. I mean, Jeff has also been around forever, and I appreciate the DIY lifestyle that he has and everything that he does. And I think this is, I mean, he was in Bomb the Music Industry beforehand. I never grasped onto that, but this record was like, it's for me, and I think a lot of other people, this is like, okay, like this is Jeff coming into his own, and we can come to expect this, and this is a landmark album, at least in punk and in his discography as well.
I also think that this was, I'm shooting in the dark here, I didn't do my research, 2013?
2016.
No, 2016. There was, which I'm sure Brad can piggyback off of, there was a really interesting thing happening, especially in independent music around this time. A lot of bands, especially in the indie punk hardcore, it even kind of touched metal a little bit, which was interesting. There was this like return to basics when it came to recording. There was a leave some of the flaws in, like the tape hiss is okay. It's not an aesthetic, like even when it's not necessarily like an aesthetic choice. There was this like, obviously lyrically Jeff Rosenstock is like kind of in emo adjacent with a lot of that like actually kind of not dissimilar to the Menzingers, like storytelling kind of deal. And then the production aspects of this album and of a lot of Jeff's discography, the production elements or lack thereof kind of influence, or like they are influenced by the songwriting and the lyricism, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so this was also an album that I know the name, never listened to the music before, did some reading, and I can see how influential this person is overall, like the second I read about them. This album is really cool to me. It's something that I wouldn't choose to listen to first, but it's an experience, and it's a very interesting one to go down the rabbit hole on. The one song that really stood out to me that made me appreciate a lot of what it did after it is To Be a Ghost. That song is really good. That is a very solid song. And as far as the sonics of the album, this is a loud album, dude. I'm listening on my setup, and I usually listen with like a certain number in mind on my interface here. It was loud, even at like my normal listening level, and I was like, whoa, this is a hitting album. You know exactly what they're setting out to do. Yeah,
that and again, I think that some of that comes down to like almost an aesthetic choice. I remember years ago talking with you, Brad, about I think it was the second full-length album by Post Malone, where there's like intentional digital clipping.
Well, yeah, it's so funny how clipping has become an art, and with this, if it's intentional, you can tell, and if it's not, you can also tell.
Yeah, and I think
like it's such an interesting thing.
I think in the case of this album, there's just that like in like a post loudness wars world, it becomes an aesthetic choice to be like whoever the mastering engineer was on this album was like, we are going to slam this into your ears.
So when I was doing some research about Jeff Rosenstock, and I'm going to look at this now, I know that they're an exceptionally like DIY artist. Like that's what they want all the time. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did it themselves. But I'm not sure.
That wouldn't be totally shocking, or at least like kept it in the camp, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a couple of bands that I'm surprised some of the albums actually didn't make it onto any of our lists. But a lot of that like run for cover core, like we were talking about last night, like everybody going to Will Yip and Vince Ratty to do that production, like keeping it in your kind of camp was a lot of that was standard practice in like the 60s, 70s, 80s. because like that's where a lot of the producers that are like heralded now, they made their names because you like bands would stick with certain people or they went to certain people for certain sounds. And then especially in the 90s and the early 2000s, especially with the democratization of like music technology and everything else, like we could go down a rabbit hole about all that. But right around, 2014, 2015, 2016, like heading into the 2020s, I think a lot of production kind of things reverted back to that, like, nah, we kind of like our crew to work on our thing. And so it wouldn't surprise me to hear that it was somebody that Jeff Rosenstock has worked with over and over and over again.
I have the answer.
Yeah, I'm looking at it too.
It's Jack Shirley, and he has done like Joyce Manor. He's worked for Whir. He did the Deaf Haven records.
He did the Deaf Heaven records?
Deaf Heaven. He did Sunbather.
No shit.
I'm not sure what he did for that album, but according at least
it
to
does explain the loudness.
Yeah. Well, and it looks like on the wiki page for the Jeff Rosenstock album for Worry, it looks like Jack Shirley did everything regarding the engineering, like recording, engineering in general, production, mixing, mastering.
Yeah.
That almost makes me wonder if the master is slammed because it was a mastering choice or because all of the recording elements themselves were just loud.
Yeah. I'm gonna listen to that discography and then go back to this album because that would be really cool.
Yeah, I do. There's a couple of albums, including a couple on my list where putting this together made me go back. And there's nothing I love more than the progression, especially of like even moderately successful artists. Mm-hmm. I remember coaching up a friend of the podcast, Ken, when they were first starting out as Psychic of Orange, and telling them like music fans haven't changed. Like it used to be you heard a song on the radio or whatever and you go, oh, I really like that. I want more. So where are you like, what's the source that you're going to go to get more of the feeling that song gave you? Probably the same artist. So building up a discography and being able to like tell that story sequentially is just like, that's just music fandom. So yeah, the listening back to that Jeff Rosenstock album, at this point, I'm probably going on 2 weeks removed from the last time I actually listened to it. I'm right there with you, Brad. There's more information to mine.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't even think about that. I mean, I just like the commentary on, I think we all have experienced a shitty landlord and just like general shittiness in general. Just like the millennial, just this world kind of sucks and we just have to deal with it. And I think it's one of those records that everyone our age can kind of relate to in some capacity. And I don't think this is the most mainstream artist to actually talk about topics of gentrification and issues of rent and issues of like just other political bullshit that we have to deal with.
That was one of the other big points when I did my first listen through of all the albums. Playlist forthcoming for those of you within the sound of my voice.
Yes.
That was one of the big things that stood out to me, lyrics wise, was like, I keep using the word honesty, maybe earnest would be another word for it. Like the relatability, but also like, I mean that in like political terms. Like,
yeah.
This is, I do think that it is remarkably punk rock, a lot of the lyrics on this album, in the way that it's just like, yeah, this shit sucks. I'm going to write a song about it.
Yeah. And a lot of the times I think there needs to be a voice to scream about what everyone's thinking. And this is clearly an album that did that. Like this is somebody who sees issues and has a lot of feelings about them. And they also just happen to be an artist, which is why this enters the world, you know?
It's almost like, I know it's kind of a dirty word for some people, but like it is kind of activist in its narrative.
Yeah.
But I will give credit in the fact that it's not like, it doesn't dip into, there's a couple of moments in the lyrics you're going to get that anytime that you get political with some of your statements, but like it doesn't really dip into like corny.
No.
It's very like kind of like it feels a little bit like reading somebody's diary, but like a really, I don't know what the word, there's a word that I'm searching for that I'm sure that I will find out like 2 weeks from now. But
yeah, you'll wake up at 3 a.m. and be like, oh, what's that?
I'll text both of you and be like, Jesus Christ, how did I? Yeah, there's a word for it, but like it's earnest, but it's not really cornball. There's not a lot of like, it's very easy to get like very goof nugget with music like this, and
yeah,
it doesn't dip into that. So I'm not sure I'm putting it as, I'm not sure. Dan, is this like for you? Is this influential? Is this influential broadly? Like you think this is like one of the more broadly influential punk albums of the past 25 years, or you? Yes.
Yes.
I see it. I see the influence in like circles that I run in, but that's interesting. I'm going to have to replay this one and go through his discography and then keep that in mind when I listen to some other contemporaries of his.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of contemporaries. I think compared to Pup or the Menzingers, or let's just go with those two, since those are on the top of the head, on the top of the dome. I think this is more influential than what they have put out. They might, so like On the Impossible Path might be my favorite record out of, I would probably say Impossible Path by the Menzingers might be a better album than Worry, but I think this album is more influential, even though On the Impossible Path came out before that. But I don't know.
I struggled with whether or not to put that one on my list, but you have to make cuts.
You have to make cuts. I'm also thinking like broad, like not just within the punk community, but also if like the Menzingers don't really get political. They're just like, my life sucks and this shit's fucked up. Like, but like this can, if you listen to a song that has if you listen to a song about gentrification and I guess like your boss being an asshole and like everything is politically fucked up, you might have start a conversation with somebody else and try to influence them, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You might be like, you might welcome that conversation or want to be like, hey parents, this sucks. This is why.
Yeah.
This is why, like, you know?
I feel that.
Yeah, I think, next time I'm home, I'm going to say, hey, Mom, Dad, listen to the Menzingers for a second. I think you need to hear this.
I think you need to hear this album.
I think you need to hear about gentrification. Bitch, we are the gentrifiers.
I've said
that's
it before.
A great name for a band. The Gentrifiers? Are you kidding me?
That's my pop punk band that I'm working on right now. Speaking of, do you guys have anything else to add on Worry by Jeff Rosenstock?
I am good to go.
No, this one just surprised me because I didn't know what to expect and it was really interesting. It was very fun.
Cool. I think, Brad, you're up for your number 3.
Yeah. So before somebody said the word cuts, and I was like, I wanted Dan to speak, but I had a really great moment to be like, speaking of cuts, how about a deep one? This is Name Taken's album, Hold On, from 2004.
This is a deep cut.
Yeah. So Name Taken, their only album. Yeah, their only album ever released. There is an EP, I believe, that came out in the late 2000s, in like 2020 almost, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 22 and 2018. There's a single there. But they also had a split with Bayside in like early 2000s.
There it is.
Yeah, when I was doing my research, I saw the split with Bayside, and I was like, oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, but what's funny is that's not how I found them. I don't think I've actually ever found a physical copy of that split. You can only get it online somewhere, and on YouTube, I think, but it's like really hard to find. It's pretty uncommon to come across. But the reason why I chose this album is the influence that this band has for how little they've released is, you cannot ignore it.
Yeah.
It's written in stone.
Yeah.
And it's just there for you to find. So I grew up in love with this album. I love how this album sounds. I love the diversity in the music itself. It's extremely polished, and it was produced here by Bo Burchell, who's from Seozen.
Yep.
And you just hear that exact polish that on the other stuff he's done too. But so there's a few things about this album in particular. The first thing is, this is where Panic at the Disco gets their name from.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Their song Panic has that lyric, and they have come out as saying like that is where we got our name. Like it is out there for everyone to see.
Yep.
So that alone shows how much influence this band had. It's like that opens the door, it blasts it wide open. But then what I was interested about is, again, they have one album. But then you look at everybody's albums when they got their start and the times that they came out with some of these really big bands, a lot of them started a few months after this band came out with this album. Not everybody, but some of the heavy hitters, I would say the ones who really got big in like 2008, 2009, their start is just after theirs. It's just after Name Taken's. So for such a subversive album to have so much influence is why I'm putting this on my list. But if I had to say a moment that will tell you exactly why it's on this list, you have to listen to the song Cover Up. Cover Up.
I'm doing the Italian
does everything. It does. The second you hear the opening guitar riff, you're like, we are back, baby. This is a song.
Dan, I'm gonna let you get your thoughts in first because I'm gonna wax poetic a little bit on my thoughts on this one.
So I wasn't familiar with this band. Honestly, surprised this made it onto your list, but this is kind of what, when I think of influence, I think of something like this, honestly, like just a band getting their name from a song that they like. Immediately I was like, I put two and two together. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you can hear the bands that it probably has influenced. Like I can hear A Loss for Words. I can hear a lot of pop punk from like basically now. You can hear My Chemical Romance. You can hear everything that, I mean, this came out in 2004, right?
Yeah, 2004.
Yeah. This, when I think of emo, I guess I can think of this album, honestly, because like, and it doesn't get its due because we hear bands like My Chemical Romance or Panic at the Disco or Fall Out Boy, even though Fall Out Boy,
the heavy hitters.
Yeah, the Fall Out Boy was around during this.
But
I'm sure that they were in the same circles. They knew, they listened to this. They probably stole some stuff from this record. I'm sure.
Well, also in particular the production, the production being from a member of Seozen, but for it to basically have pop production. This is like shimmering, clean production. So many interesting like effects and distortions and panning decisions and delays. Like it's all thrown in here. It actually reminds me a lot of Bayside Self-Titled because there's a lot of interesting creative decisions that are also displayed like front and center.
You could have told me this came out a couple months ago and I probably would have believed you because I think
that's a great point.
I think because usually when you think of, I mean, it's an album. Were they signed at this point?
I'm looking at the label as Fiddler.
Fiddler.
Ooh. Never heard of her.
Just gonna.
I barely know her.
I hardly know her.
It's a Universal Music Group company now, I think.
Okay, but assuming at the time it was probably independent and everything.
Yeah, I would also assume.
I assume that. I mean.
Oh yeah, here, small independent record label serving as the launch pad for several artists seminal to the pop punk and emo genres. Dashboard Confessional, Newfound Glory, Name Taken. They actually are listed, which is interesting. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, you could have said this came out a couple months ago. The production is really good. Usually for like low budget independent record labels, you don't get that kind of production. I feel like there's usually you can hear the errors.
Yeah. All right, AJ.
What do you got to say, AJ? Let's hear you wax poetic.
I am so fucking mad at you, Brad. I had no idea that something like this would be on your list. And I had never heard this album before I started listening to this. And
holy shit.
I am the champion of bullshit like this. Like this is
niche emo bands that no one hears about.
That like emo pop sound is my bag. And this one came out of nowhere. I was really, really shocked to find out that it wasn't Aaron Sprinkle who did the production. Because this reminds me so much of Phantoms by Acceptance, who is another band with a very similar story. Like Acceptance was doing headliners with Panic at the Disco as their opener. Like they were the champions of this just like really radio ready pop polished sound. And I had never heard of Name Taken. these are just the starting points. I know we're going to get into even more of this sound a little bit as we go along.
Oh yeah.
But it's just a reminder of how like surface level, especially the stardom piece can be with things. Like there are bands that do this exact sound today that are so much bigger and more people would reference as a influence. And I'm listening to something from 2004 and being like, I was listening to this shit in 2004. Like my cousins were turning me on to Fall Out Boy in 2003. How the fuck did Name Taken not end up on my iPod Classic? I think production wise we've covered a decent amount of it. Like there was this really cool thing that was happening with, I won't go so far as to say underground bands, but like the bands that were starting to bubble up, like the Fall Out Boys, like Name Taken, like early Paramore, obviously Panic at the Disco. There's some great podcasts about their first album that kind of shed some light. Like there was a thing that was happening in that realm where these admittedly pretty gritty bands, if you got to see them live, were going into the studio and putting out these just like diamond polished albums. And you have to keep in mind that at that time in the early 2000s, like Pro Tools wasn't ubiquitous. It wasn't as easy as sitting in your bedroom and becoming Billie Eilish like it is now.
Like you still have to go
you had to know the people.
You still have to go into a studio and get an engineer, go rent studio time and all that shit.
And a lot of an album like this in 2004, especially if you're an independent band, you're probably going to tape when you're recording, and you still come out sounding this polished and this like note perfect, even though it's like arguably a pop punk album. Like to do that in 2004 is not as easy as it is to do it in 2026.
There is something so just special about this album as a whole. Like I'm being 100% honest when I say I still don't know if I've heard something that makes me feel the way that this album feels, even from the first time I ever listened to it. Like the diversity across the whole thing regarding everything from the production to the mixing to the songwriting, like everything is so diverse across the board. And then you get, honestly, the one moment in this album that always gives me chills is towards the end of Cover Up. There's this palm muted section that cuts out every single semblance of sound except for his voice. And then you're just listening to this guy scream this chorus and you're like, where am I right now? I don't know where I am in this song.
Yep.
It's so good. But yeah, like to your point, I'm just going off rails now, but to your point, it is very rare for something like this to exist, especially for the time that it came out. It's just so special.
We're gonna get another one of those points, at least for me, with a very specific part later on. But yeah, like some of that early 2000s stuff that paved the way for what you listen to now and people are ostensibly able to do in their bedrooms. Like, man, they were cooking. They were cooking back then.
Well, I'm glad that you guys listened to it and found something from it, because this one's special, and it's special to me.
In a way, they're a little ahead of their time.
Yeah,
definitely.
Honestly, you could probably numerically say they were ahead of their time probably by 5 years.
Yeah.
Like 2009 pop punk, that's basically where they were headed.
Yeah,
but they still sound so genuine.
When I hear the year 2009, the first thing I think of is the album Brand New Eyes by Paramore.
Yep. There you go.
That was the first Paramore album that was done by Chris Lord-Alge, and this is very much the sound that they were going for, and very much the sound that like became synonymous with Chris Lord-Alge. So that's I was actually, so when I built the playlist initially, right? Excuse me. I built the playlist of all these albums so that I could sit back and listen, whether I was at work or just riding the train or whatever. This came up at work and I had no idea what I was listening to. I like came back into the Chalk Factory and this was playing, and I was like, what is this? This sounds pretty awesome. What is this? And I realized it was still my phone playing it. And again, I was sitting there. I think I actually texted you too, Brad, after I picked my jaw up on the floor. I was like,
I remember, yeah.
Dude, what? How did this not make my radar?
It's also funny, like, the fact that this is after Gregory Alan Isakov is just bizarre, and 2 ahead of T-Square.
Exactly.
It's just insane. All right, I want to go on a small tangent, and then let's move on to your third, AJ.
All right.
The tangent I have is about crystalloid algae. Have you listened to Billy Talent 2? Billy Talent's second album.
Is that the one with Red Flag?
That's the one with, yes.
Yes.
Okay, that is a crystalloid algae classic. Dan, listen to that album and let me know how long it took you to uncover your ears from how hard the snare hits.
It's
How hard the snare hits and how hard you can tell that it's the same sample the entire time.
it's funny. I grew up listening to Anti-Flag, but I never got into that Billy Talent record.
Oh my God. Okay, you know what? I'm going to say it now. I'm coming back and we're going to do an episode about, we'll each choose 1 or 2 bands that have gotten better over time.
Ooh,
no matter what their discography is like, because this is inspiring me now, this tangent I took, because Billy Talent is one of them for me.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so let's pin that, because I just thought of that as we were talking.
We'll make it like the Avengers trailers that are coming out, like Brad Tuller will return on the Packy Run podcast.
Yeah, and just don't name it Doomsday. Don't name it Brad Tuller Doomsday. I don't need the bad press.
You got a business to maintain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I clearly don't, because my number 3 pick is it's a doozy. I can't wait to hear what you guys think about this one. My number 3 pick is the album You Are Beneath Me by a band called End of a Year, which is now known as Self Defense Family. Less of a band, more of a collective. But of all of their discography, this album informs a lot of the just like, again, I searched for the correct word, contrarian, just fuck you, I won't do what you tell me kind of attitude that I love so much in music, and not dissimilar to your pick with Jeff Rosenstock, Dan. Lyrically, I love observational storytelling, like something that gets your mind thinking, like you can kind of picture whatever the situation is in your mind. This, more than anything that their vocalist Patrick Kinlan has done, this one is just coated in piss and vinegar. Like it's just such, it is such a fuck you album. But I picked it because End of a Year ended up becoming Self Defense Family, which became very prolific. Patrick, who still does Self Defense Family, is now the vocalist for Drug Church, which is another one of like my current crop of favorite bands. And the sound of this record is just so live and honest, and you basically get, like, for the most part, you hear your 2 guitars, your bass, your drums, and your vocalist, and it could have been recorded they could have recorded this live for the way that it sounds. They not quite. There's plenty of other podcasts. Shout out to Overnight Drive and Axe to Grind, both of whom have documented a lot of what went into this album, mostly because the Overnight Drive guys were guitarists and bassists in the band at the time. Axe to Grind has Patrick Kinlan on it, so he's been able to share some tidbits about it. But this was, more than any of my 5, this one was my most personal pick, because it just informs so much of what I listen to and the way that I digest music in this, like, I hate to use the word, but like I love the lore behind this, and the build up and the way that they made the album. They made it just down the other side of the river for me here in DC, I believe. They loved the band Lungfish. Some people have defined it as kraut rock, which I don't know what that means. It's
that's crazy. I've actually looked this up before and I can't remember. I got you.
It's
German experimental rock.
Yeah, it's just very like there's just enough heavy parts that you could probably call it hardcore, but it is like it's almost spoken word sometimes. There's just a lot, like it feels chaotic in a really good way, and there's something about that, like you could call it like demo core. Like there's no polish here.
That's an awesome term.
Yeah, that is a good way to put it.
This is my, like, I tried to do most influential or most important, and then it came down to this one in the 3 spot, and I was like, so much of what I listen to is informed by this, so this one's for me.
I didn't know, Dan, I want to hear your thoughts first, but I didn't know that they were started in New York.
Yes, sir. Albany on top.
Albany originally, yeah.
So I've dabbled with Self-Defense Family, not as much as you, AJ, but I've dabbled here and there. Yeah, for me, this is no surprise with the amount of how often I hear you talking about Patrick Kinlaw. That's no surprise. Like, I'm just like, yeah, of course. So it reminds me a lot of kind of like that DC like hardcore scene. Fugazi, Embrace, early emo. It's very much in that vein. I think the way that you described demo core, that's a perfect way to describe it. It's not polished, but you know what? It doesn't need to be. It does what it has to do. What is that first song off the record?
Composite Character.
Yeah, that song, hilarious. It's a perfect opener.
I think it's so funny to start an album with basically a manifesto. This is, if you can't get through this, 2 minutes, this one's not going to be for you, buddy.
And I thought that was just hilarious. I mean, I haven't listened to Patrick Kinlaw's podcast, even though you keep telling me to do that. I know he is a sarcastic bastard from everything that you say.
Yeah.
And this kind of just reinforces that,
Yeah, he is prickly for the sake of being prickly, and I think like we could talk about him as an individual for hours and debate that, but I think the overarching thing that like defines my love for that dude, but specifically this album, sometimes art needs to be challenging.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you need to be outside of your comfort zone. I hated Self-Defense the first time I heard them. I hated this album the first time I heard it. And I was like, you start with a spoken word track that like you're just throwing around like this is the way to listen to this album. This is the person that you need to be. And then when you understand that it's a little bit tongue in cheek because it's a piece of art, and then you sit back and you're like, no, I'm going to, for lack of a better term, suffer through this.
Yeah.
Because there is a bigger, like, there's kind of a bigger thing going on here. And this is art that is meant to poke the bear.
Yeah. It reminds me of a Black Flag album called Family Man.
Yep.
That's exactly what it like reminds me of. Mm-hmm. So Family Man is half spoken word, half instrumental by Black Flag. And it's not an easy listen at all. Nope. It's probably, I would say, if you want to listen to Black Flag, don't listen to that record. It's a challenging listen for sure.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say if you want to listen to Black Flag, don't.
I mean, also that don't.
I didn't know where that was going.
Henry Rollins, the proto Dave Grohl. He's just everywhere. We don't know why.
What are your thoughts, Brad?
Yeah, this was so I'll be honest, this is not what I would choose to listen to. However, that doesn't mean I don't appreciate what it does. This is an album that I can feel gives others a sense of belonging. Like you can hear the community through this album. You can just hear it. And what you said about it being live or like sounding live, I didn't really think of it until you mentioned that. The whole time I was listening to this album, I legitimately thought of like like being in the crowd listening to it.
Yeah.
Like I felt like I was looking at a stage while the show was going on, and it's hard for an album to kind of transport you that specifically, but this does it. Like I legitimately felt like I was listening to a performance on a stage right there.
It sounds and it feels like the VFW halls that this band to this day still plays.
Yeah.
And I think it's just like, I think that's part of what makes it like important to me and why I felt like it was worthy of being on the list. Like end of a year and especially some of the later Self-Defense family stuff, which is just when they're less of a collective and more of a band, there's like 30 members at this point. A bunch
They
of
draw
them are
straws on who goes on tour and who doesn't.
pretty much. They like, but a bunch of the people in the collective have now become audio engineers. So between that and like the fact that they just keep getting deals from labels to go and record, like, yeah, I think that's the exact correct word, Brad, is this is like the community band. Like everybody just cycles in and out, and the sound of the album is very raw. That's something that I enjoy a lot of the time. The lyrics are just so tongue-in-cheek and so like you kind of have to fight to get to a point where you agree with what's being said.
Yep.
It is a challenge, and that's kind of the whole point of the album is like if you want to learn how to appreciate music as an art, you have to be able to get over that hump and, in all honesty, not to scratch our own backs, but like kind of do what we're doing now, where it's like, I wouldn't listen to this, but I'm going to sit back and I'm going to dedicate some time to listen and figure out what, like, where is the merit here?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I was thinking of this actually kind of confirms it now that I have learned that they like started in New York, not necessarily the same area, but also a very semi-niche upstate New York band, Polar Bear Club.
Yep.
Yes.
This band reminds me of that and feeling where it's like you hear that singer and you're like, people listen to this. like you can't believe that it's possible. Yeah, like you can't believe it. But then you start to understand so much more about what the band is, and you're like, oh, I actually love this. And also they really do kind of remind me of Polar Bear Club, not in style but in concept, like their presentation. They are nowhere near the same band, but there's an element of that, like, really, like this is how it's being presented.
That's the tone that you want to. Okay.
I love the Polar Bear Club.
Yeah, and also I will end that with Death Chorus is an underrated album, and everyone should listen to it.
Agreed.
Yes.
People hate that album. I love that album.
And it's just like weirdly in Nashville, I kept running into Albany people, and when I would mention that one of my favorite bands is from Cahoes, they'd be like, "Oh, you know your shit."
Yeah.
And based on like I've shown this album to so many people. I've introduced so many people to Patrick's like comics and everything else, which, by the way, big plug, he's doing a Kickstarter right now. It's already funded, but I definitely want one of the hardcovers.
I'll have to check that out.
He is a remarkably good writer. The last thing that I'll say about this album, it sounds like Albany, New York. Like this is the sound of just like, oh, this place kind of sucks, but it's home. And I think that all three of us being Northeastern guys, I think there's an Albany-Boston connection that is just not talked about enough. And yeah, upstate New York plus Boston. Of course, I was going to sit and listen to this album and be like, yeah, of course, this is the sound of winter in this city.
Yeah,
it's piss and vinegar and attitude, and yeah, that's just winter.
Yeah. All right.
I love it.
Let's get to the number twos.
Oh, we're getting there. Oh boy.
Number 2, I have Sticks and Stones by Newfound Glory. I would say this is probably when you think of Newfound Glory, this is the album. And when most people think of 2000s pop punk, Newfound Glory is not the band that immediately pops up. I think there's probably 5 bands they name first, but I think Newfound Glory kind of popularized that frontman pop punk thing, where there's only one guy who sings. I think a lot of the bands that were coming out at the time, like Fall Out Boy, you had a singer and while playing guitar, there's a standalone just frontman, and that kind of influenced all the other pop punk bands that are popular now. Also, two probably the most important pop punk bands currently got their names from this album, All Time Low and The Story So Far. So I think that's undeniable.
You know, that's interesting because I heard the lyric "All Time Low," and in my head something was like, "I wonder."
Yep.
Yeah.
So is that true? That's true.
Yes, that is confirmed.
Okay, that's awesome.
So The Story So Far and All Time Low and The Story So Far got their names from this record. This is a sneaky record for influence. You have probably their biggest song, My Friends Over You, which that's a banger. You have Head On Collision. I think it's one of those undeniable, kind of underrated but influential records for what pop punk is now. And I mean, especially when pop punk kind of had its mainstream moment back in like the early 2020s with MGK and all these other like Travis Barker core bands and artists, if you want to call it that. Like this album also influenced that as well.
This album is also produced by Neil Lavron. By the way.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Jump from this one to Fall Out Boy.
Yeah.
Also, they're in the hardcore scene. Shout out to them. Can't deny that.
100% they are.
It's hardcore kids making pop punk records, just like Fall Out Boy.
Sick.
Yeah, this was a staple growing up, and the influence is still heard from like the guy with the guy with the head voice singing. The hardcore influence is all over it. Like you do not get a loss for words. You do not get The Story So Far. You do not get like half of the current crop of pop punk bands without this album and this band. There's a reason why. I think it was Newfound Glory, Green Day, and Blink-182. I think that was the Pop Disaster tour in like early 2000s, 1999 maybe. This set the precedent of like, hey, you can do the Blink-182 pop punk thing. You can get like kind of whiny vocals. You can have like the pop production and everything else, and also like palm mute your guitar and play a breakdown.
Yes.
I would agree with the pioneering aspect of this album and this band. They set the foundation for so many other bands to come around and be like, hey, we can be heavy and also have like a chorus.
And not only that, but a lot of those emo rappers that came up in the 2010s, like Lil Uzi Vert and a couple others, I mean, you could shake your head all you want, but they were influenced by pop punk. They were influenced by Paramore, and Paramore was influenced by Newfound Glory.
Not just because of a shitty marriage, but
not because of a shitty marriage. No. I'm just saying
because of it.
No, but I'm saying in general, like a lot of those emo rappers also, they cite pop punk as like a huge influence.
They sample
pop punk
it too.
And 808 beats. Yeah, they sample it. Yeah.
This album for me was an awakening because this is a band I've never listened to, have always heard about. It just never, because again, you also need to understand. I have something, this is going to sound so stupid. I call this the blockbuster theory.
Okay.
Kids,
Okay.
when we were kids, right? We grew up with having limited selection and grew into unlimited selection with what we have now. So now it's like, you've never listened to so-and-so, you've never listened to, or you've never seen this. It's like, well, when I was a kid, I chose a totally different path with music than Newfound Glory in my circle, essentially. And it could have come across my way, but it never did. So I never got a chance to like hear the impact that this album really does have. And when I heard it, I was like, all right, I'll do a deep dive. I was like, I get it, I'll do it. And a lot made sense to me when I saw not only the year it came out, but the quality of the album itself.
And for
those two things dictated a lot.
Man, for those that don't know, that's really saying something, because Brad, you are a Long Island boy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, through and through.
So like
that is undeniable.
The Taking Back Sundays guys, the brand news, like the emo pop punk like smorgasbord that was all kind of happening right at the same time as Newfound Glory kind of ascended. The fact that you went in a different direction with your musical tastes when you were in Bayshore is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, like I'm a little upset that I hadn't heard this album sooner because it made so much more make sense to me about a lot of what I listen to.
This came out in 2002.
This is an important album, and you can tell. What I am interested to do is I'm looking at their discography right now. I am very familiar with everything that came out in like 2006. That was like the year for me. That's when music started to really infect my mind, and it was the only thing that I could think about. I want to listen to this album coming home, and I want to hear how it stands up to things around it, because this album 4 years before, around this, that's the same year as Tell All Your Friends. I want to hear the comparisons of the albums I do know to them.
This I'll go out on a little bit of a limb with my knowledge of like the Long Island quote unquote hardcore scene and stuff. You don't get Louder Now by Taking Back Sunday if this album doesn't hit the way that it did.
Yeah, you're talking about Coming Home?
No, I'm talking about Sticks and Stones.
Okay, you're talking. I'm sorry. Okay, gotcha.
So Tell All Your Friends. They polished it up a little bit more with oh my God, what's the second album by Taking Back Sunday? The one with the naked
Set
butt.
Your Faders. Oh, sorry. No,
Where
no.
You Want to Be.
Where you want to be.
Where You Want to Be.
That kid is so old now.
I know. So you get Tell All Your Friends, you get Where You Want to Be, and I think the like shockwaves of Sticks and Stones and like the way this album still punches, I would argue, above its weight class. Mm-hmm. This album, especially for national touring bands at the time, but like there was a weird thing that was going on in the early 2000s where you had bands that were nationally touring, but they weren't like pop bands quite yet.
Yeah,
they hadn't really exploded like that.
Yeah,
you get this album, and it got like this was part of the turn. I think Fall Out Boy was a little bit part of it too. Mm-hmm. You got this paradigm shift, and then all of a sudden, like you get these bands making pop records. So the Taking Back Sunday conversation is kind of interesting that like you don't get an album like Louder Now, and all of Eric Valentine's frustrating drum engineering.
That's the third episode. That's the third episode. Oh, we've talked about this. I would do an episode just talking about how he is truly like probably the best producer, mix engineer for rock music out there.
He's one of the best engineers and one of the most frustrating because he makes decisions that are super, super interesting from an engineering standpoint. And then you sit back and listen in like cheap headphones and you're like, why did you do this? Who told you it was a good idea?
It's a very. I honestly, we should come back and do an episode, something like that. That'd be very fun.
But we digress. That's
looking into this. Sticks and Stones came out before Take This to Your Grave and From Under the Cork Tree. Like those two albums wouldn't exist.
This was again. This album was part of a paradigm shift where all of a sudden it was like, oh, we can do that with this music.
Yeah, and also I have to do this because it puts. The reason I do this is it puts into context so much about what I'm listening to and the time that it came out. Mm-hmm. I'm looking up the sync placements for Newfound Glory. Hit or Miss was in American Pie 2 and the Benchwarmers.
Yep.
But more importantly, My Friends Over You was in Smallville, and everything made sense
Sold.
all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And a little honorable mention here. Kiss Me, Kyle XY.
The Kiss Me cover is the Kiss Me cover still bangs. I will not apologize. Yep.
I do know about that one actually.
Well, and all of those shows and movies were very relevant at that time. I mean, like
they were omnipresent.
Everyone was watching those.
But that's why I look this stuff up, is because it gives you an idea of what was going on. Like that tells you everything. Like media is always how you know what was actually happening at the time, especially like top like 10 movies of the year. Whatever fashion, whatever slang, whatever is going on in that movie is what was happening that year. If it's like a period piece, obviously, like rom-coms especially do that.
Yeah.
Also gotta say, they have a song in Burnout 3 and I'm very happy about that.
Oh God, we could what is this, fifth podcast that we have to do? The Burnout 3 soundtrack. Holy shit.
Dude, Burnout Revenge is where I learned about Billy Talent.
Same. All of a sudden we're back in FS at University of New Haven.
I know.
We're
Yeah, Billy Talent. And then also, dude, okay, Madden 06.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh.
Oh my God.
Let me tell you something. I spent many hours on that game.
Yo.
Many hours on that game.
I feel like we're back in our freshman year dorm. This is like
It never left.
for
Yeah,
everybody for everybody that doesn't know, like this conversation is how the three of us became friends. This is where especially your two main podcast hosts just fell in love with Brad Tuller. We would start talking about video games and soundtracks, and all of a sudden we were like, this dude's the shit.
When we talk, I mean, this podcast is actually a challenge for us because there's never an end in sight.
No, not never.
One of us has to, there are two outcomes. One of us has to fall asleep, or one of us has to be so hungry enough that we just leave the conversation, and that's when it ends.
And yeah, with it,
I mean, that's what I did last night. After
yeah, that was pretty
That's
much
literally what happened last night. That's why we had to do a second episode.
which is why God damn it, I'm going to keep us on track. All right, so Dan, you had Sticks and Stones as your number 2. We're gonna move on to
Yes.
Brad's number 2. We're gonna fucking finish this tonight.
It's gonna happen.
we have
Okay,
to.
changing everything.
Yes.
This is
Yes.
my number 2 is the How to Train Your Dragon soundtrack by John Powell from 2010, not the current remake. Which I will add a side note here: the newest version of this album that came out with the new movie, the live action movie. I think there is charm that is lost because of the way that it's recorded now, and I'll get into that a little bit.
Just remaking things in general is just
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sonically, there's a reason, and I'll talk about that. But so the reason why I chose this as my number 2, this is number 2 for me. Movie music did not sound the same after this. You have Michael Giacchino, The Incredibles. That's a staple. That is a pinnacle of movie composition. It's incredible. You have all the other things that he has done in particular. Then John Powell comes on the scene, and he's like, oh yeah, we're going to do everything, and we're going to make it thematic. Like, we're going to make everything sound like it fits within the Scottish lore, and it's just going to cover every genre you could imagine, but it's all going to be orchestral. And all of a sudden, it just blossomed the whole, like, what was possible. It really changed what was possible. The way that this album hits when you watch it and when you listen to it on its own is unparalleled. I still listen to this. I listened to this since it came out. I think I've listened to this at least, if I'm gonna like put out numbers, at least once a month since 2010. Like this is always on rotation. Or I hear something and I'm like, oh, what's that song in How to Train Your Dragon where there's that really cool part that, oh, it's that one, and I'm listening to the album again. So that's my
your pitch.
my take. Yeah.
I'm going to lay down on the sword right off the bat. Never seen the movies.
Same.
Never.
Okay.
Just not.
That's honestly perfect.
Not even on my radar. And when you mentioned Scotland, I might have done a racism. My money was on Irish, but like that Northern Isles kind of deal.
Well, no, dude, you get a pass because you've never seen the movie. You have no idea.
Yeah, I went into this ice cold, and I'm glad. My takeaways, in short, were I'm glad that there was a movie soundtrack on here because there has been innovation in music is hard in this day and age. And it's really easy to get stuck into the John Williams, Hans Zimmer. It wasn't Hans Zimmer. There was another composer that did He's a Pirate, the Pirates of the Caribbean, like the main one that everybody knows.
I got you. Give me a second here.
Or maybe it was Hans that did that, but it was somebody else who conducted in the first place.
Well, Hans Zimmer is one of the composers. Klaus Badelt.
There we go. It's really easy to get shoehorned into these things. So adding a specifical, that's not a word.
Run with it. We're adding a
specific regional element to the soundtrack is always interesting, especially with like Dan and I are Boston boys. We love the Dropkick Murphys, even if we don't listen to the Dropkick Murphys all that much. But like adding a region specific kind of sound to something always makes it more interesting. And to have it be like orchestral music in that way just like conjures images in the brain.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what's so amazing about it. It's a fascinating concept.
It's really interesting to do critical listening to something like this. And I'll put it through the lens of like my John Williams fandom, right? Like my favorite movie score of all time is Star Wars Episode 1. And it's influenced by the fact that I've seen the movie. But I can listen to all of those pieces of music and like immediately in my head, I'm like, and the droids are marching in and the lightsaber battle is happening. And Anakin is sitting there as a 9-year-old and weirdly hitting on like a clearly 20-year-old Natalie Portman. Like, but those kind of images run through your head. So to have pieces of orchestral music that I don't have immediate thoughts about, you start to draw on your own life. You just sit there and like you really kind of play out the movie in your own head. So I can't speak super definitively on like why this soundtrack versus any other movie soundtrack is important, but it's really nice to have had that moment of sitting back and being like, okay, I'm going to digest just this.
So what did you? Well, Dan, I'm sorry. Talk about your thoughts about what you heard.
Yeah.
And then I have a question for the two of you.
So I, like AJ, I haven't seen the movie. I just haven't had the time to. Or I'm just like not a big movie person, but I can see why this is influential. This is like the gold standard for a movie, for a movie score. This is the gold standard. This is how it should sound. The level of detail that he includes is incredible. I mean, 30 percussion instruments.
Dude, I know. Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. That's one thing I was going to bring up is the fact that he literally has like a marching band. He has like a snare section from a marching band. It's probably like, it's got to be at least 10 snare drummers big.
That is
just in the middle.
That's a huge fucking instrument. Like, not instrument, a huge fucking orchestra. Like that orchestra is huge. It's funny because like at my job, we do a lot of concerts with film scores. Like with it, we've done like Star Wars, we've done Harry Potter, and I'm like, damn, this would be fucking awesome. But then at the same time, I'm like, how are we gonna? The logistics is a nightmare. Just the amount of stage extension we would need is incredible. I mean, every single review I see, I'm like reading through like it, and I also listen through, but like just seeing all the reviews, it's 5 stars, 10 stars, it's an A, like, and I can see why. Looks like he has also been in a bunch of he's done a lot of other scores as well.
Has he gotten that Marvel bag yet? That's the real...
No, but close to. He actually, there's a soundtrack for a rom-com he did with, I think it's Gerard Butler and Hilary Swank. I could be wrong. It's called P.S. I Love You. There, you can actually hear him experimenting with the theme of this movie in the score of that one. You hear the same thing and you're like, oh, you're testing the waters. Yeah. Like you have this in your back pocket, but you know it's not time yet.
He's putting his fingertips together like Mr. Burns. Like,
he also did both the Wicked movies. I mean, that is...
Oh, Jesus H. Christ. I can't escape it.
Well,
so yeah, okay.
Whatever your feelings are towards it, that's probably the biggest movie of the last 3 years.
And no doubt.
But consider this. This is the movie that got him there.
Yeah.
This is the one.
Absolutely.
This is the one.
You can hear it.
So my question to both of you was, you haven't seen the movie, but you've now listened to the soundtrack. What did you think of the soundtrack as far as the music itself, the content? Like, did you enjoy it? Did it not hit a certain mark for you? Did it? What are your thoughts?
My first thought, and I sound like a little bit of a rube, I keep going back to my Star Wars fandom. But a while ago, back in the 70s, if you can imagine, the 1970s, back when people still talked like this, meh. George Lucas talked about the original Star Wars, and talking about the score, he said, I want it to be basically a silent movie. Like, he asked John Williams to create a score to the movie where you could remove all of the dialogue, all of the sound effects, everything, and just watch what was happening on the screen and listening to the score. And I'll be super frank. I saw the soundtrack and I was happy that there was a soundtrack that was going to be on the list, but I sat back and I was like, how do we, on a podcast platform, how do we talk about it? This is, I won't go so far as to say it's the pinnacle of that, but it definitely evoked that, like, oh, now I'm
like that. This is special.
Yeah.
Now I'm really interested in watching this movie, and if I could get a hard copy, if I could get a Blu-ray where I could hack it so that I could just watch, like, I'm going to watch this movie without anything else except for the visuals and the score.
Yeah.
I think that would end up being a special experience. So I think you picked well, Brad.
Okay. I'm glad to hear it. And what about you, Dan?
Like I said earlier, I think it's the gold standard for modern film scores. I think you could throw that up with also anything that John Williams has done. I think it's good.
That's high praise.
I think it's comparable to what John Williams would have done. You don't need to go after. I mean, John Williams is now 94 years old, so obviously he's not doing much these days. He's chilling.
Mm-hmm.
But like he is just as good.
I'm glad to hear it. Now what you guys need to do is you need to watch the movie and let me know what you think, whenever that is.
Yeah, I do have to watch that movie now. Sometimes you just hear something and you want. Sometimes or at least for me, sometimes I watch or listen to something or before what is actually you're supposed to. So I will happily end up watching this film.
Excellent.
I'll close out with one more thought before we move on and get to the gold standards for our dear listeners. Just based on what Dan said, listening to this soundtrack reminded me a lot. So I have a vivid memory in my mind of going to Borders Books at my local mall.
Rest in peace.
R.I.P. Rest in pepperoni.
Rip and Pit.
I went to the mall, I was at Borders, and I picked up the Spider-Man 2 novelization, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 2. And I wanted it real bad, and my dad said, I'm not buying it for you unless you can sit down and read a chapter. Because it was a hefty book. It was a big boy. And I sat down and I read it, and I read that book, and it was only in the past 10 years that I actually watched that entire movie.
Really?
Yeah. I read the novelization first, and I was like, okay, I'm cool. I never went to see it in theaters, didn't own it on DVD, Blu-ray, anything, but I got so much more out of the reading of the novelization of that movie that I never felt compelled to actually watch it until I did actually watch it. There's a similar like gut feeling that I have having listened to the soundtrack where I will tell you when I watch it and I will watch it, but very like getting that like piece of it, getting that exposure to it in that way does almost make me not want to watch it because there is a different kind of feeling that comes from getting that instead of the full thing.
You're gonna like the movie. You should watch it. I know you're gonna like it. I know you. You're gonna like this movie. Imagine, okay, this is gonna sound so cheesy. How do I say this without you being completely turned off from the movie? Okay, I'm just gonna say it. Imagine the hero's journey, but instead of us getting a sword, you get a friend.
Okay. All right. No more selling need. No more selling needed. We're okay. That's sweet.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of selling, sell us your number 2.
Sell us on it.
Why are you not on the podcast every week, Brad? Way to go.
Because I don't have time.
I don't think either of us have time either. All right. My number 2, which I think is going to be, I think this is going to be one of the most unanimous decisions that the three of us have. My number 2 is the album Floral Green by the band Title
Sorry.
Fight.
Nope. Sorry. Don't agree.
No, you're
Disagree.
done. No, you did.
Nope. You're done. Okay, let's go to number 1.
Dan quit the podcast. He's done.
So my number 1 is Fergalicious. Came out in 2000 and
Fergalicious is actually off the album The Duchess. You would know that if you knew music at all. Okay.
Oh no, not the whole. I'm talking about the song.
Oh, just the song.
That's the only thing that mattered that year.
I mean,
what about milkshakes?
You're not wrong.
All right. Anyway.
Anyways,
back
I'll,
to.
I'll,
I'm sorry.
I'll stop.
I had to.
I'll stop.
Number 2, Floral Green title fight. I think this was. There was a whole bunch of things. The social media, soft grunge, fucking whatever thing that was going on where people were calling, they were posting their edits with music underneath it and everything else.
Tumblr core.
This was the album for Tumblr core. But for those of us that got even more interested and more excited about the sound of like alt rock, etc., this album, it was just inescapable. It was, I think, for those of us in the listenership that are like interested in production, I would argue that this might be the best of Will Yip. It blended that, you had that 90s grunge kind of thing going on with some of the mid-tempo kind of songwriting. You had the esoteric kind of thing going on, the lyrics that hardcore had for years leading up to this, but also an earnestness in the way that the vocals were delivered. It still hit a couple of harder points. It just so for those that don't know, if you bought the album on vinyl, or I think the initial CD run, if you look at it online, it's a white background with just you can tell that there's a painting behind the cutout of the name Title Fight. And then if you opened the vinyl packaging, if you opened the CD, you got this beautiful painting by John Garrett Slaby that just fits with the entire vibe of the album. It reintroduced people to the idea of like, hey, hardcore doesn't have to be hardcore. It doesn't have to be straight edge. It doesn't have to be the metalcore shit. Like, it just reintroduced this idea of like, these are 4 guys doing the thing. The vocals can get a little bit rough, but they can also be very, very melodic. There can be production elements that make it sound larger than life while also being able to be translated into a live space. I think it was a toss up for this is my number 1 or my number 2.
And to fully sign off on this and agree with your decision to put this on the list. I don't know if you remember, I had that poster from the vinyl in a frame above my bed when we met.
Do I remember?
In freshman year. That artwork was above my bed the whole year that we met.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
It was like a full fold out poster that you got from the vinyl copy, and there was just like,
it was gorgeous.
There was so much of a buzz around this band.
I also think, if I'm not mistaken, there is a person in the artwork lying down that you do not see in the actual artwork. I think you need the full thing to see it.
You have to take off the slipcover in order to get to.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's like a grassy background with animals, but you don't know that there's a person there until you see the full art.
It was just the constitution of like the visual art that came with the album, plus the sound of the album that was kind of the sound was a little bit ahead of its time, but also like perfectly placed with everything else that was going on, especially in that like Run for Cover, No Sleep, Top Shelf, all of those record labels that were churning out a lot of stuff that's very similar to this. But this is like the album that stood out and was like, okay, if you're a fan of independent music in the late 2000s, early 2010s, here's your shit, man. Like, these are the guys.
Yeah.
This is peak Title Fight. This is probably their best record. It's not my favorite release, but it's their best record overall.
I agree with that, Dan.
This is my favorite release is Spring Songs. That's just me.
We are aligned on that.
That's my favorite, but their best is Floral Green. They weren't even signed to Run for Cover at this point, but I'm just going to call this is an iconic album for that Run for Cover scene. Like, this is one of those albums that when you think of Run for Cover bands, this is one automatically associated with. And I also made this note, and I don't know if it's a hot take or not, but Title Fight from that Run for Cover scene, they're like kind of like the Nirvana from that scene. If you think about like,
I 100% agree. Like, like, especially during this album cycle, you could make arguments for other bands that were doing similar sounds. You could try to hold so many different artists against Title Fight at this point, and maybe they were like the more popular sound, the more, for real cynics, like maybe they were the more distilled sound. Although when it comes to this album, I wouldn't call it distilled at all. I think it was, honesty has been like a through line through both of these recording sessions. Title Fight was number one, and I think I'm gonna get in the hot take chamber even more than Nirvana. I think Title Fight has defined more of the bands and the sounds that came after them than Nirvana did. And that's breadth, not in terms of popularity or anything else, because Title Fight was like jumping labels and there were so many.
Yeah.
They never signed like a multi-album contract or anything like that. But I don't think that Nirvana comparison is very far off.
And when, I guess, because we talked about Fall Out Boy earlier, when Fall Out Boy dug deeper into the pop, I guess Title Fight probably could have made that decision. They probably could have gone the poppier direction, but they were like, let's go in the shoegaze direction. And this is the perfect amount of shoegaze, at least for me. Like after that Hyperview, I was just like, I've started to give it some re-listens, and it's not as bad as I thought it was, but it's not. This is such a, like, Hyperview was such a downgrade from this, in my opinion.
I am so glad we're talking about this, because I have words. This is going to be my what is it, wax poetic? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, Floral Green. I have to be in such a nostalgic mood to listen to it, and when I do, I miss it every time. It always comes back to me when I need it most. It's a boomerang. This album literally is a boomerang for me. But when I hear the opening guitar line to Head in the Ceiling Fan, I can literally see myself driving through Long Island, going to my friend's house to play Smash for 10 hours straight. Like, I can literally see the roads that I drove down to experience that year of my life, because this is the only thing I listen to. I see all of it. And for me, the song that hits the hardest, that's Head in the Ceiling Fan. The song that impacted me the most is Lefty.
Yep.
That song is underrated. It deserves much more attention. And I'm going to put a challenge out there. I don't know if there's a DJ who's going to listen to this. I am almost positive that Lefty and Lost Your Name by Balancing Composure are in the same key and almost same tempos. And I need to hear a mashup.
Brad, I'm already hard. You don't have to keep going.
I'm like 80% sure. But Lefty always left an impression on me because it is such an interesting song.
Yeah.
That song is what solidified this album for me as something special. Head in the Ceiling Fan, everyone knows that song is just amazing. But Lefty, no one talks about nearly as much. Also, I do have this on vinyl. I listened to it a lot on vinyl in college. The flow of this album is really good. The way that they organize these songs, it's incredible. It's really incredible. So those are the reasons why I agree with this being there. And I think you do have a point about the Nirvana comparison. I think the accessibility with social media is what put them on almost the same level as that kind of influence. But a band had to do it. Somebody had to do it, and it was Title Fight. They definitely put a marker down for everybody else.
And it was like it was the marker for like the true social media age.
Yeah.
So
this is 2012.
People talk about Nirvana with the advent of MTV and everything else. And I actually wrote a paper in college about how basically after Nirvana, music stopped innovating. And part of what I talked about was...
Can you send me that if you still have it?
It is on a hard drive. I will dig through and I will find it.
I want to read that.
I think it actually, most of the paper was about Fugazi as the last actual innovative band, truly. But I referenced a lot of Nirvana and a lot of MTV becoming a thing. But for the advent of the social media age, keeping that in mind is why I agree with Dan so much, where it's just like, oh, like right when people started to lose any semblance of like focusing on a subject, when it started to become short form videos like Vine and everything that was going on while we were in college, Tumblr just being like the beginning of doom scrolling.
Yep.
This was the band that like managed to break through just enough where there was not a single there were pop fans, there were punk fans, there were hardcore kids, there are still hardcore kids, for the record. Everybody sat back and went, fuck, this Title Fight band is pretty fucking good, huh? And like, I think I'm gonna go into the hot take chamber again. Turnstile has played bigger stages.
Yep.
But I think Title Fight still holds the crown as the actual like reach. Like they touched more people, they got into more people's ears.
Like those last 2 Turnstile records wouldn't happen without this record.
No, not the
true.
fuck at all. No.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of, sorry, Dan, I want to backtrack for a second. There was a second half to what I was saying. Hyperview, when that came out, you guys gave me so much shit because I didn't like that album when it came out.
I didn't give you shit at all.
Yes, you did.
I was on the record for hating it. I did not like it.
Okay, I will give you grace, and if we did talk, it was probably the first week it came out.
I think Dan and I,
because you guys would have been the first people I talked about that album.
I
to.
think
AJ liked it. I know AJ was like, "Oh yeah, this makes sense. This is what they would have done." I'm like, I don't know, man.
I was very far into that bag, especially after that Pianos Become the Teeth record. I was like, no, this is natural progression.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I refuse to admit that it fell flat.
I listened to that album, and I have something against 2015 with music. That is what started it. There is something that happened where people couldn't figure out what they wanted to do and which direction they wanted to go in for like 2 years, and that's what started it for me personally, except for, and let me make sure I'm getting this right. Hold on. This is very important.
Is it Peripheral Vision?
No,
that was 14, I think.
No, that was 15.
Neon Indian, Vega International Night
School. I was surprised it wasn't I was surprised it wasn't on a list.
It actually was one of the considerations. It really was. But when I thought about it, I didn't choose albums that tried to push you into a direction the whole time.
Yeah.
Like I almost put Random Access Memories on here, but that whole album, from the second you look at the cover, is telling you a story, and that's not enough of a spectrum for me to consider it to do something on a broad spectrum. It's so thin with what it achieves to do, but it achieves so much. And that's why I didn't put International Night School on either.
I do need anybody that has made it this far into what I'm sure is going to be a multi-part episode. I do need somebody to challenge us to talk about our EDM days.
I didn't have EDM days.
You almost came to the Dylan Francis concert, you fucking liar.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
What are you talking
this
about?
This is gaslighting.
You did.
This is gaslighting at its finest.
Oh, sure.
No.
Yeah, okay.
No.
My EDM days can be summed up by just listening to Ocean Lab.
Did it sound like the 80s? Oh, Brad will like this.
Oh wait, let's not stray too far from.
Yeah.
Wow, this is Floral Green.
I think, we're finishing up our second album, so we've got a little bit longer to go. Do we want to pause and go take a pee break, and then we'll get to?
Yeah.
I just had one more point to make about Floral Green. And it's just the fact that I remember I was working like a VIP event or thing, and it was a meet and greet with like a newer artist. And she cited Title Fight as one of her main influencers. And I thought that was very interesting. And I think in the age of TikTok, it's not about people aren't focusing on melodies. They want more melodic sounds. And shoegaze is kind of making a comeback, and Title Fight is one of those bands that people are citing again.
And the fucking the comeback of Super Heaven, like the fact that Youngest youngest daughter became like a
that blew my
TikTok sound.
mind.
Yeah.
That blew my mind.
I've never been so happy to feel so old. Like, I remember that was one of the first things that I ever bought from the Run for Cover web store, because I was like really on my vinyl kick, and the first single from the album sounded good enough that I was like, I'll pre-order the album. And then that like 10 years later, all of a sudden you're sitting back and you're like, yo, that's one of my favorite guitar riffs of all time. Not a hard guitar riff to play, by the way, but like, yeah, that it makes sense that is.
Yeah. Just talking about influence, I mean, like, there is kind of that revival again of those sounds. And Title Fight is one of those bands that people are turning to.
Yeah.
Even 10 years later.
100%.
Also, talking about shoegaze making a comeback, I am going to send you guys an album that came out in 2025. It's a shoegaze album that absolutely blew me away by an artist called Inling. I believe they're Norwegian, but I discovered them recently, and you guys, with everything we're talking about now, this is almost like all of those influences coming to a head.
Heard. Okay. What I am going to do is pause my recording right now. If I...
Oh, yes. All right. Yes. I have been recording this whole goddamn time. You'll see the WAV file.
Okay, we are now in. Like I said before we left, this could very easily become a 3-part episode, which would be hilarious. We have reached the end point, boys. How do we, just in case it does actually become a 3-part episode, real quick, how are we feeling about each other's? Do we think that anybody leaned? I want to cause some chaos. Do we think that anybody leaned too far into, I was trying to be more influential on everything else? I was trying to be more like my personal tastes. Do we have any thoughts on that before we go to the number 1 spot?
Well, I think you guys exist in such a niche part of the music world most of the time, at least in my opinion. Like, you guys know so much stuff, and it all like goes into a general direction, I would say. So your choices don't surprise me at all. Like, the things that you have chosen are so subversive for the genres they're a part of, and I have never even heard of a few of these things, or rather, I have heard of them but never listened to them. Jeff Rosenstock is one that really surprised me. Never knew, and I'm glad that I do now. Have Heart, never listened to, End of Year, like things like that. Like, these are things that I would never listen to, but I'm glad I have now, and it makes sense to me why you chose them. So it gives me more insight into you guys and your influences. But it all makes sense to me. It really does.
I mean, I went into this project with my personal taste and what I thought was influential, and I tried to stick with that rubric as much as I could. I was like, what was a good pop record that was like influential? And I was just like, that's not who I am. That's not me. So let's think about what is like an influential record while also tailoring my personal taste into it.
Yeah, I think Dan's list very much. Dan, you led. I would argue that you led with your heart, like the things that have influenced so much of you. And I think that it is, for me, your list is just so much like, oh, that's a pretty good kind of amalgamation of Dan Mayotte.
Yes.
And you need to have heart.
You need to have heart.
To have heart.
Brad, not shockingly, yours felt more like technical and so much like, yours felt so much more broad. And
well, I'm sorry, continue.
All I was going to say is that, like, when we each put our lists into this note, yours was one of the funniest because of what I just said about the Name Taken album. I saw 5 albums where I was like, I haven't listened to any of this shit. Like, how?
Same.
This is going to be like a little bit of a class. I'm going to have to listen to this shit and like really take it in. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, all 3 of us kind of did the same thing, I think. Where it was like, well, the most influential broadly as best we can, but also the stuff that was just like 25 years of music being on this earth. These are also things that just like hit you and inform not only you, but the people around you. So like Name Taken, that like weird they always call it Long Island hardcore, but basically a pop punk record. Yeah, I'm not going to get over. No time soon will I get over walking into my place of work and hearing one of the songs on Name Taken and being like, "What is this? Oh, this is playing from my phone. What the fuck?" Brad, what the hell is
That's
this?
awesome. We can also, I'll send you what I would even consider. There's another layer deep than that by a band called Edison Glass. They are also like a Long Island band, but they also have a little bit of influence in certain directions from the Long Island scene and just from the New York scene in general. But I'll send that to you later too. I'm hyped up for this. But yeah, my whole thing with my list was I have a playlist that I've made. It is called the Everything Playlist, and it is everything that has ever mattered to me from 2000 to now, and it's being updated still. But I went through that. It's 236 hours of music or something, and I went through it, and I was looking at it like, that's good, that's good, that's good. Every single one that I put on this list, I saw it in that playlist and went, that's better. These are the only ones where I went, no, that's a better choice. That was like my process for this.
You'll have to send me a link and I can convert it from title and get we can share that with the Packy Run listenership. But
yeah, that would be amazing.
All right, boys, we're at the end.
Are we doing it?
I believe, Dan, do you go first?
All right.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Number one.
All right. So my number one is American Idiot by Green Day. I think that I'm willing to make this claim, and I think it's a pretty accurate claim. I think every person around our age group picked up a guitar or picked up an instrument because they listened to this record, or at least and guilty as well. I mean, this is probably their most important record, I would say. For a while, Green Day was just kind of just like, they were a classic punk band. They were just floundering. They wrote records, they toured, but they weren't. This album catapulted them into superstardom. We don't talk about them the same way without this record, and the same, we don't hear bands now without this record. This album, I guess you could probably say it's probably one of the most important punk records of all time. It's up there with the Ramones self-titled. It's up there with the Clash. It is iconic. It has, and I'm gonna look at
Mixed by Chris Lord-Alge.
Yes. But you have they decided to start a record with probably the 4 best songs from the record. Anybody who has heard of Green Day, they know these 4 first songs. They know American Idiot, they know Jesus of Suburbia, they know Holiday, and they know Bullhard of Broken Dreams. If I can
Broke Heart of Bold Dreams.
And everyone knows it. And everyone knows "Wake Me Up When September Ends." I mean, those are iconic songs from our youth, I would say. I mean, at least for mine, I think everyone our age can also probably vouch that those songs were part of the soundtrack of our youth.
Yeah, AJ, you're about to speak. Go ahead.
I've said it before. This band at this time, it's funny because outside of just the dismay and the like weirdness of post 9/11 world, like if you look at the lyrics, this isn't even like a particularly political album outside of a few like zingers.
Yeah.
But this band at this time putting out this album and having it sound this good while still just feeling like it felt edgy. It was so, and not edgy in a derogatory or like a dismissive way. It was just like, and again, this sounds a little bit dismissive, but it's not. This was the zeitgeist. This was 2004.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were all in, like, we weren't even in middle school yet. And this just felt like, oh, okay, this is my shit. This is. Yeah. It was the gateway to counterculture. It was the thing that was like, yeah, these guys are playing on Good Morning America or whatever, but also this was it. And from an engineering standpoint, it's miraculous because how do you get, people can recognize riffs, people can recognize notes from a guitar or a bass or whatever. But the opening like strums of a power chord to Holiday, it didn't matter if it was the AM radio. It didn't matter if it was like compressed to shit while they were playing live on like Jimmy Kimmel Live or whatever, like wherever they were. You hear just the strums to American Idiot. When they played it live, Billy Joe wasn't even playing the actual notes. He was muting all of his guitar strings, but as soon as you heard the chicka 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 immediately you were just like, and I'm in. I'm done.
Yeah.
And the few zingers that they do throw in there that make it like this political paragon. Yeah, this makes total sense as a number one. Because it's just so ubiquitous. It's so just, if you were there at that time, if you grew up with this, if you heard this when you were sitting, it didn't matter if it was your mom's minivan or if you got it off of LimeWire, it just perseveres.
Yeah. And it's, the way that your comment about it being edgy, I mean, I think I'll speak for myself. When you're growing up, you are so used to just listening to whatever your parents listen to and whatever is on their radio, whatever CD they throw on. This was probably the first time for me where I was like, oh yeah, like this is it. This is, I'll take this. This is mine. And when I was coming up with this list originally, this was probably the first album I wrote down because I was like, this is a no-brainer.
I would believe that. I could absolutely see that being the case for you. Like when I saw this too, it made so much sense to me. And it could not fit on my list for the way that I approached it, but I'm so happy you put it on yours.
It's like we talked about it earlier a couple of times. The heart-shaped hand grenade as the artwork.
I'm looking at it on Tidal right now, like 1/3 of my screen size. It is like massive front and center.
The font that they chose to make it kind of like this is going to, like, the edge is there in bold letters to make you feel something about like, oh, I'm going to experience this. So like the all the other things that come with the actual music, the theme is all there. And
did you guys also know, real quick, I'm sorry, I'm looking at it. It says Green Day presents American Idiot.
Yeah, they went full thematic with
it doesn't
the
just
shit.
say Green. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's I never noticed that, but I love that because it sets up for what you're about to listen to, where it is kind of like, we're going to show you like the theatrical production that is the government. And like that is basically like what they're setting you up for.
It is a concept record too.
I got to see the Broadway play, and I got to see Billy Joe Armstrong play St. Jimmy, and like this record has a special place.
Yeah. Well, let me give a little bit about my background because I really wanted to hear what you guys had to say, because you guys generally have more experience with the things that I would say like the average, I guess, rocker would get into. Like I had a weird start into rock music as a whole, but it sounds like it affected us the same. Like you could not escape this album. I remember playing Call of Duty Big Red One, listening to this album, having it on my iPod Nano. Like I could not stop with this album. I was obsessed with Holiday. I was obsessed with When September Ends. Like all of those things, I can still feel how I felt when I first heard those songs and when they were prevalent in my life. And this album really does, like, okay, so the one thing that I wrote down is this album is the 2000s.
Yeah,
this is basically what you said, AJ. And I wrote it in a different way. This is the 2000s. You have a precedent that gets set by this band. The polish, the grit is all there, and every band is trying to chase what they set in, when did this come out? 2004? Oh, never mind. They were inspired by Name Taken. I'm just kidding. Same year. But no, not to mention the like musical political impacts this has. Like this this album tackles front and center 9/11. It talks about something so on the minds of the American people a few years after it happened, even to the day. And like from personal experience, knowing people who were responders and had to deal with that whole situation, I listened to this album actually separate from this. We listened to it maybe 2 months before it, just on a whim. There's so much that this album does, and when you listen to it, you know exactly what it's trying to do. And it's like, it just hits different for a lot of different reasons.
And it does it, kind of tying it back into the Jeff Rosenstock conversation that we had, like it does it through this like suburban malaise. Obviously, like right on the nose with a name for a song like Jesus of Suburbia. Like, but that was like, I grew up in a house on the South Shore of Massachusetts, and in the shortly after post 9/11 world, like sleepy town.
Yeah.
And my parents are out there like, we have to get a security system for our house because who knows who could like it touched on that suburban paranoia thing. I'll go to Matt for this album, like a really, really smart way. Like these are the poppiest of pop punk songs. And you still get that, feeling of like, everything is tense and we don't know what's going on in the world. And all of a sudden, like now the globe just became so much bigger and we don't know why, but like here we are and we're, there is.
I would also argue, going back to another album on this list, Kendrick Lamar's album, To Pimp a Butterfly, they do very similar things, which is force you to look at the issue. You have people screaming you in the face saying, do you see what's going on? And not only that, but it is number one in the charts. Like you cannot ignore it.
Like there's a little bit of a corniness element to it, but there is something that I still find so profound about. I think it's on the second to last track. I think it's Homecoming. It's almost a throwaway line, but it's like from the 7-Eleven to the fear of breaking down. That just like it's so suburban, and it touched on it. Like there's a reason why so many people are just, they give this album their flower. This album gets all of the flowers all of the time, but there is this thing of just like, if you remember being a kid in suburbia in 2004, this is what people like. You're in your sleepy little McMansion town, and you're still sitting there like they're coming for us, and we don't know what else is going on in the rest of the world. And now all of a sudden we're like very like, it is this album just defined so much for millennials, and to not go on forever and ever. Chris Lord-Alge was the guy to do this. There's so much in the production that is just so in your face. It is all about guitar, the upper parts of the bass, and the snare. It just, like, the entire album is just obsessed with punching at you. And it was done in a way where everybody was going to be listening to this on FM radio. So you have to make sure that your mix still punches when you're getting compressed to shit so that you can go somewhere. Like, there's so much to be said, but I was so glad to see it on your list, Dan. It was...
Yeah, it really made me happy to see this pop up because it's such a good choice. Like, it makes sense in every direction. It really does.
Yeah, it is an important record. I think a lot of people, I remember for a little bit when I was being like a snobby punk kid growing up, I was like, yeah, fuck Green Day.
Fucking
like, fuck
sellouts.
American Idiot. That's not even their best album. Like, fucking sellouts. Like, I think for a little bit, I was like trying to convince myself that Dookie was like a better record than American Idiot. And I was like, I think Green Day, I saw Green Day like a couple years ago at Fenway, and they did Dookie and American Idiot from front to back. Like, that was the entire show. And I think even before that, I realized like American Idiot was a better record, and I don't care. Fuck it, man. Like, if I lose punk points, it doesn't matter. This record like fucking is so sick. It's it's important to what I eventually got into and whatever music I wrote or helped write. And I think all the bands that I have listened to have gotten into they're influenced by this album, obviously. And I just had this realization that 3 out of the 5 records on my list are kind of political or pseudo-political or have like interesting commentary on political issues, which I think is
There's
fascinating.
your influence.
Yeah, it's how I see the world, man.
Sweet. I love that. I'm happy that this made it to the list. Closing remarks before we go to Brad and then me? Yeah,
Listen
just
to it.
go back, revisit.
You'll be jamming. Let's hear what you got, Brad.
All right, you ready?
Give it to me.
It's number 1 time.
My number 1. Thank you for the tee up. My number 1 album for the most influential albums in the past 25 years is It's Album Time by Todd Tersh.
You mean it's number 1
Or
time?
I actually believe it's Todd Trey. 2014. That number is very important. Imagine yourself making music for others. You find success doing so. You write, you mix, you produce, and then your friends say, hey, you should come out with something. And then you say, okay, that's this album. And that's why it's called It's Album Time. And I would argue this is the most punk album on this list because of the context of why it was created. This man said, you know what? I will do it myself. And he made a masterpiece all by himself. So this album still blows me away. It does everything that an album needs to do and beyond. I would say the only fault that you could poke at it is that it's a little long, but it is an artist's album. It's not really meant to be a pop 40-minute whatever. This is like an art piece. So this album is what happens when you have someone in the background put on the front stage. This is what exposure sounds like. This is what revelation sounds like. This is how it becomes. It's also like home recording at its finest. I mean, clearly he had access to a lot of amazing stuff, but the drums in this album, if they aren't electronic, they are the Abbey Road kit from Native Instruments.
Okay.
That is important. And I'll get into that. This album's almost a one and done. There's another EP that comes after it, but he literally just put this out and was like, here you go, I did it. And then lastly, this is experience on full display, similar to T-Square, right? This guy has done everything, and he's putting all of his heart and soul, experience, everything into this album. And this is the result. So I'll go back to the 2014 thing. We are on the cusp of fully accessible home recording. It is fully accessible, but the next layer doesn't happen for maybe in a year, 2 years after that, in like 2016 when things really changed. So this guy is doing everything himself for the purpose of just making music alone. This is the cusp and also it's the start of a new era is really what it is. This signals in the next era of modern music production. And that's why the number 2014 is so important. And that's why I mentioned the Native Instruments kit. I did not know those were sampled drums until this year. I have gone 11 years of my life listening to this album not knowing that those were sampled kits. He disguises it so effortlessly. It's unbelievable. That's my tee up. I want to hear your guys' thoughts, and then I want to get a little bit into the musicality of it.
Right off the bat, like it is listening on multiple different devices, different setups. It's such a ridiculously Brad Tuller album from
Yes, it is.
Speaking purely from the production standpoint, like the way that you and I talked a lot about it when we worked on the first Psychic of Orange album.
Yeah.
A solid piece of art. It is a cohesive thing that you are trying to put out into the world. This had that feeling to it. And also you and I could go on for hours about that turn that I've used the term already, but like that paradigm shift into being able to do this without having to spend thousands of dollars to get the studio time, to get somebody that knows how to work all the gear in the studio, that whole thing. Hearing about the Native Instruments thing so End of a Year was so very much my pick of where I was like, oh yes, this is this is going to be my stamp on this list. For Dan, Jeff Rosenstock, at least for me, Jeff Rosenstock felt like Dan being like, I'm going to put my flag in the ground and like, this is my thing. Your number one feels so much like, and there's Brad Tuller. There he is. Even more than the soundtrack, even more than the Gregory Alan Isaacoff, which I know has been one of your favorites for a while. This was the one where it was just like, and there's Brad.
I wrote in my notes, I was like, I could see why this inspired Brad's out like music. Like I was like, I put it on, I'm like, oh yeah, that's Brad.
There he is.
I could hear the influence of Brad's music. Like there he is. Honestly, what I got from it, I was like, I can hear Latin beats. I don't know if he's using Latin beats, but like I'm like, oh yeah, like
he is.
Yeah. I mean,
there's a lot of diversity.
Yeah, like a lot of Latin beats, and I was like, oh yeah, like Bad Bunny's kind of big right now. I mean, he is the biggest artist in the entire. He's the biggest artist in the world. I'm like, this possibly like influenced him or like his producers to use those kind of beats for him. And I can see how that would influence not just him, but I mean a lot of people as well. I feel like there's a lot of trends of people care about vibe. They want a good vibe song. And this, at least in like 2014, like I don't remember, people didn't care about vibe. They wanted something that you could sing along to, something that you could dance to. This is just, it's vibey, it's poppy. This could have been released last week and I would be like, yeah, makes sense. And I was like, oh, this is like 11 years old. That's incredible.
Yeah. I am really proud to like put this on some sort of list at all. Beyond the vibe and the recording techniques that were used and all the technical stuff, the music is so dense.
Yes, it is.
This doesn't necessarily signal density, but the time signature changes are there. The modulations are there. The insane decisions for delay and distortion to literally affect the tempo of the piece are there. Like there are insane things that he's just like saying, oh, I can do this, and you've never heard this before. Here you go. It like I don't understand how nobody else has been able to match this since, and that's why it holds such a special place in my heart. This album is so unique.
To like the layman's ears, especially with some of the time signature changes, the chaos that comes out of that, and like we've talked a lot about what makes good songs, what makes good recordings. You can go back to Music Theory 101, like if you hit that minor chord in between your two major chords, the human body just goes like, oh, where are you going to go from there? Oh no. What's going to happen next? And then you resolve it and you go, oh, okay. And we're back. The same thing happens with the time signature changes. The same thing happens with I think you guys hit the nail on the head, like density. There's so much that goes on where like to somebody who's not a music fan, to somebody who's not used to critical listening, you might sit back and be like, I don't like it. It's too chaotic. When the reality of it is like, no, but if you wait a couple of seconds, if you just stick with it, because then it hits that resolution and you're like, oh man, that feels earned.
Absolutely. And each song has a moment, and I can literally hear them in my head as I'm like looking at these song titles.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing. He sets you up for the theme, and then he's like, hey, punch you in the face, back to the theme. Like every single
Just
song has that.
As New York and Boston is so often known for, it's a quick, hey, fuck you, but let me help you.
No, fuck you.
But also,
yep, pretty much.
I kind of like
I'll also say that this album has a cover song, which is also important because it plays into the whole, like, he's doing it for him. And he had an opportunity to work with Brian Ferry, who I had heard of before. And then when I saw him on this album, I was like just super interested in the fact that he like showed up on this. The guy has so many credentials. And the fact that he got this poll just speaks to his legacy legacy before he made this album. Like, this is somebody who decided to do something for himself.
And again, I will mention that like music fandom and a lot of artists don't change. Like, that's what you're talking about is not a necessarily unique story in the way that like people employ songwriters.
Yeah.
And they're pretty good songwriters. Yeah. And then they start shopping their songs around and whatever else. And then the more they get into that section of the business, all of a sudden they turn around and go, you know, I might be able to do this for myself. That is such a normal like part of coming up through the business, or especially in the pop case, the industry. Some of the best artists that we have are exactly that same format. Like, that format has not changed since the 60s.
Yeah.
Like, you're pretty good at this. So how about you go and try it for yourself? No, this was
I think
this was a very fun listen.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys listened to it.
It was a great listen.
Yeah, this album is important in ways that I don't even think I could describe. But when you listen to it, you kind of understand what was being conveyed, and it just hits so hard. For the listeners, if you're still here, Preben Goes to Acapulco. That's the song you need to listen to.
We should have done that for the other ones. Like, what's the one?
Yeah, well, this one in particular, you need a little bit of direction because they're all so good. But this one is like that's the sound. That's it.
That's the pinnacle of this particular one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that tells you what you need to know. All right, AJ, let's do it.
We're gonna close it out. My number one pick, for not dissimilar reasons, for Brad's number one pick, and a couple of the other albums that we've already talked about. I'm not sure it's my number one album of all time, but it is in the top 5 discussion. Bleed American by Jimmy Eat World. And here's my pitch. Comes out in 2001, so we're right at that cusp between digital audio and analog audio. And there's plenty of the early digital audio like effects that come up in and around this. But it is very clearly a tape recorded, independent, especially at this time, independent band that has the chance, well, they blew their chance at major label stardom and come back and spend all their money to just we're going to do one more album. It is this perfect encapsulation of we're going to write really big pop songs. Obviously, the biggest single off the album is The Middle. Everybody knows it. 99% of people love it. But the rest of the album is just so perfectly put together where you put it through the mentality of like, we are a guitar band. We're an indie guitar band. We've got like a little bit of that Jim Blossoms thing coming from the Southwest, but like we've got a little bit more edge to us. And we are just going to blow every cent that we can to make sure that this album sounds perfect with all of the technology that we have at our disposal. So you get a little bit of early Pro Tools, some of the reverse delay, some of the, they're not even close mic guitars. They're actually DI'd, which is you get direct input guitars next to like Neumann, Brad, correct me, it's a U47. What's like the Neumann condenser?
U47 is the that's like the big vocal mic that a lot of
that close.
It's like the tube mic. Yeah,
it just warmth. Like this is so much the sound of the turn of the century. Songwriting wise, there's a couple of parts that fall flat. I mean, the ballad. I don't think I can really get through the ballad. It's just so done and overwrought with a bunch of the stuff that came after it. But if you put yourself in the headspace of like, this is 2001 and I'm hearing like this like emo ballad that ended up on every independent record after the fact, this is the one. I love this album so much. I'm looking forward to hearing your guys' takes on it.
You want to go, Dan?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this is an important record. I know that you probably hate The Middle, AJ.
I do.
I don't know if you do or not. I mean, it's their biggest song, without a doubt. Might not be their best song, but it's their biggest
100%.
song. When people think of Jimmy Eat World, they think of that song immediately. And I didn't know that it came out in '01. So this is the precursor of like Taking Back Sunday, like a Fall Out Boy. It's the precursor to everything, basically. I mean, like there were bands who were doing this similar sound. Like when I threw on this record for the first time, I was like, oh, there's Jawbreaker.
Yep.
Ding. Like immediately I was like, oh, this is Jawbreaker, right? And obviously like there's like the Purity Ring, there's Texas is the Reason, there's like that similar emo adjacent rock band from that time, but the production on this is significantly better than all of those records. This is head and heels over that. This sounds like it has 2015 production. And it's in 2001. That's incredible. What else did I write? Also, Sweetness is another one of those iconic songs that you hear at every emo night playlist.
That call and response just it's so good.
Yeah, perfect. It's a perfect song. It's an album with iconic sounds, and I can see why it's on your list. It makes sense. You talk about this album all the time, and it's deserving to be on a list like this.
Yeah, so I was surprised to see this over maybe something like Blink-182, or like I was expecting something like that from AJ for his number one, but I'm happy to see that this album was here because I feel like honestly I am like the perfect litmus test for this album.
Yes, you are.
When I was a kid.
There's no kidding. Yes, you are.
Yeah. When I was a kid. It's so funny. When I was a kid, I got a laptop from a family member and it had LimeWire on it. And I didn't know what LimeWire was. And I had a friend be like, oh, you can like download anything. So as like a 10-year-old, I was like, oh, let me see what's popular. I downloaded this album and a Skylit Drive, but we don't have to talk about that. So I downloaded this album, and I love this album so much. But the one song that solidifies this for me is the Authority song.
Mr.
hear
80s loves
that song,
the Authority song. I'm shocked.
Of course he does.
When I hear that song, they prove to you right then and there, we can do anything. That is the moment that they tell you they can literally do anything. And then everything before it, I'm looking at the track list right now. Back then, you would have listened to it like straight through pretty much when it came out. Authority song is number 10 out of 11. So you listen to that and then you say, wait a minute, you can do this, but I just listened to that. I need to listen to this again. And then it makes more sense the second time you listen to it. And that is the sign of such an incredible album and the impact that this has. It does deserve a spot on this list because of that. Like, this has done so much. And is this, you need to correct me if I'm wrong, is Jimmy Eat World Midwest?
They're from Arizona.
Band? From Arizona.
They're from Arizona. Okay. That is really important because we've almost like added a lot of different hotspots in the U.S. onto this list to some degree. Obviously, a lot of East Coast, but there's something to be said about that geographic location and how much influence there is too. Like American football
Midwest,
was also Midwest, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So like, there's a context there that is now being spoken of that Jimmy Eat World unknowingly, I think, kind of.
Well, I was really
put on the map. Like this, we're still talking about the middle after 20.
And I was really pointed
years?
in the fact that I compared them to the Gin Blossoms, another Arizona band, where they had massive hits too.
Yeah.
And there is something about, just like you're saying, that geographic location, it informs so much of, weirdly enough, it informs the songwriting. It informs the sound of so many of these bands. You don't get American Idiot if Green Day is not from Southern California. Like there is a
California.
There's a sound to, is Gilman Street not Southern California? Am I wrong?
It's in San Francisco.
Jesus fuck! I need to go to
San
the West
Francisco
Coast
Bay
at
Area.
some point. Dan, we're starting a Patreon so that we can fund a trip to the West Coast for either of us. Jesus Christ. California in general, then. You don't get the Green Day sound without California. You don't get Jimmy Eat World without Arizona. You don't get the Gin Blossoms without Arizona. You don't get a lot of the albums that we're talking about without like the Florida pop punk when it comes to Newfound Glory, the New York, Long Island hardcore, but also we want to be poppy. Like Boston, you do not get Have Heart if you do not have the city of Boston. There's so much of this geographic influence on what we've been talking about for hours and hours and hours on end.
Yeah, and the only thing that I can think of to say right now, which is more of a joke than anything, somehow, if you triangulate all the locations that we have suggested through these bands, you get Muse.
Also, yes. You take it all in. You take in the case of Muse, you take it all the fuck in, and then you put out that.
Yeah. So basically, what we're trying to say is that Muse is the greatest band of all time.
I think that is the takeaway from our experiment here.
from talking about Jimmy Eat World.
Yeah. No. I just think my closing remarks on it are, I think that from an engineering standpoint, Bleed American is just, this is everything I want to hear out of a band that is both hungry but also at the height of their powers. It's the perfect mix of like, you can kind of tell when the computer is involved, but we recorded this to tape and we are, we're just a rock band that's trying to make a rock album. It was number one with a bullet. This was the only one that didn't change. Like, this was going to be number one for me.
No, that's Fall Out Boy.
No. Fall Out Boy has lower lows than Jimmy Eat World, at least on this album.
No, it's because you said number one with a bullet.
Loaded God, complex, cockade and bullet. I'm not going to wake up my roommate more. Yeah,
all right, guys.
Does anybody have closing remarks? Anything they want to plug, or do we think we've beat these people over the head enough?
Great albums. I think we all had some really good picks, really interesting picks. Obviously, mine were the best. You don't have to. You don't have to like agree with me now. But
no, I think Brad and I are both going to. We're going to back you up. Yeah, listen to Dan's albums, and there's not a comment section on podcasts. Well, there is, because we're on YouTube.
Yeah.
So just comment "fuck you, Brad" or "fuck you, AJ" to let us know that you listened.
Yeah. Check us out on social media.
And then Dan will make 10 bot accounts that just type that.
Exactly.
Oh shit. I got nothing else. I think we have beaten everyone over the head with these albums. Go listen to them. Go check them out. That's really it for me.
Yeah, let's make sure that we've got playlists for all the different streaming services. Search Brad Tuller on Apple Music or Tidal or whatever. Profound, and I promise I'm not saying it to just gas you up.
Oh, come on.
Honest to God, one of the better mastering engineers in the world right now. Give him your money, give him your projects. Even if it's just for critical listening, he has improved me as an engineer. So give it up for Brad. And
that's too kind. Thank you. That's actually too kind. I don't know if I can accept this.
God damn it.
Then don't.
Then don't.
I don't know. What do you want me to tell you?
In case you were wondering, the ongoing war between the Jewish fucking Long Islanders and the Italian Bostonites is ongoing.
I'm not Italian.
The day that the U.S. has a major earthquake is when you and I hug for the first time.
While not wearing each other's clothes. Thank you for listening. Keep out for more episodes of the Packy Run. Search up Brad. Give him your streaming sense. It's great. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And I'm going to see how the fuck I'm going to edit all of this and make it legible for everybody. So love you guys. Love you listeners. God bless. We'll catch you soon.
Bye-bye.
Peace.